members of BNI 1 Mumbai, our next speaker is someone that we have all been waiting for days, weeks, and months. And I want to just quickly read his bio sheet. He is the founder and chief visionary officer of BNI, the world's largest business networking organization. Founded in 1985, the organization now has 9,000 chapters throughout every populated continent of the world. Last year alone, BNI generated 11.2 million referrals, resulting in $14.2 billion worth of business for its members. His PhD is from the University of Southern California. He's a New York Times best-selling author who has written 24 books, including his latest bestseller, Who's in Your Room? He's also a columnist for Entrepreneur.com and has been a university professor as well as a member of the board of trustees for the University of La Verne. Called the father of modern networking by CNN and one of the top networking experts by Forbes, he is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. He's been featured in the LA Times, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, as well as numerous TV and radio shows, including CNN, the BBC, and the Today Show on NBC. Among his many awards, he has been named Humanitarian of the Year by the Red Cross and was recently the recipient of the John C. Maxwell Leadership Award. He is also proud to be the co-founder of the BNI Charitable Foundation. He and his wife, Elizabeth, are now empty nesters with 3 adult children. Oh, and in his spare time, listen to this, he is also an amateur magician and, be careful now, a black belt in karate. Okay, now all of you ready? Most of us, ladies and gentlemen, most of us have never really met him, but he has significantly impacted our lives and our businesses with his life's work. He is quite literally the reason that we are all here in this room together, and he has given us business, he's given us newfound friends and relationships, and most of all, he has given us a process to turn our hopes into reality. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your gratitude in that very special One Mumbai way to Dr. Ivan Misner.
Thank you so much.
Hang on.
Oh,
we want to say something to you. Thank you. Dr. Ivan Misner! Thank you, Dr. Misner. Thank you very much.
Namaste, BNI Mumbai. It truly is a pleasure to be back here in Mumbai. This is my 3rd visit, and today I'll be talking about a subject that I haven't talked about here in India, and it's related to a new book. But before I do, there's a couple of things that I'd like to show you. First of all, I've got here, this is my Facebook page, and what's exciting about this, I have some good news and maybe a little bad news. The good news is that I have more followers from India than any other country in the world, including the United States. Now, I have some more good news. I have more followers here in Mumbai than I do in Bangalore. Okay, so a little bit of bad news. I have more followers in Delhi than I do in Mumbai. Oh, is that going to change tonight? Yes, okay, good. I just found out like a few months ago, more followers from India than anywhere else in the world. So, of course, I have to come to India. I always love my visits here, and so I've come bearing some gifts. I have some free books for you. You can go to Amazon.com today. This is the last day, but I scheduled these for my visit to India. My wife, Elizabeth, and I wrote this book, Healing Can Be Easy, and it's about our journey, her journey in particular, through cancer. And this book is available as a digital download today on Amazon.com. So you can go there, and actually it's through tomorrow. You should be able to get it for the next 24 hours. So take a picture of the book so you know what it is, and you can download it for free. If you don't have a Kindle, you can still download an app to use for free. Would you like a second book? Would you like to have a second book for free? All right, well, I have a brand new book that is very BNI focused. It is called The Networking Mentor, and is a book about a chapter member who mentors another chapter member, and he becomes so successful in business that he starts mentoring people. This is a great little book. It is available for free over the next several days. I only have one request. Download it. Here's the request. Do a review. Do a review on Amazon. If you like it, do a review. If you don't like it, don't do a review. No, but it's absolutely free. It's called The Networking Mentor, and this is a book really about BNI. But this isn't what I'm going to talk about tonight. What I want to talk about tonight is a book that you've seen. We have copies in the back. Pawan, where you have Pawan, I saw you here just a minute ago. He is donating a percentage of the revenues from that to the foundation. Pawan, thank you so much. I appreciate you. So if you have an opportunity, go on back, pick up a copy of the book. I'm happy to sign it for you. So I'll be talking about this today. Who's in your room? Now, as I talk about this subject, I want you to think about it in the context of who's in your BNI chapter. Because the concept of who's in your room, really, although it's not about networking, trust me, it is about networking. Because the people that you have in your room, the people that you do business with, they are part of your life. And so who's in your room, although it's not about networking, it really is, in a way, about the relationships you have, which means it is about networking. So imagine, this is the concept of the book, imagine that you live your life in one room. And that one room has only one door. And that one door is an enter-only door. So when people come into your life or into your room, they're there forever. You can never get them out. It's a little scary, isn't it? Now, luckily, it's a metaphor. But if it were true, would you be more selective about the people that you let into your life? Yes? Everybody always says yes. So then the question is, why aren't we more selective about the people that we let into our life? Because I would argue it's more than a metaphor. I want you to think about someone right now. Think about somebody that you got out of your life, because people say to me, this is, it's a metaphor. I can get them out of my life. All right, well, let's think about that. I want you to think of someone that you've gotten out of your life, but they were toxic, they were difficult. You did not enjoy spending time with them. They were a lot of problems for you. I want you to think about that person. I want you to think about what they did in the relationship that you had with them. Now, I'm going to make you all stand up one at a time and name that person. No, I'm not going to make you do that. But you have somebody in your mind, right? Yes? So if they're in your mind, they're in your room. If they're in your head, they're in your room. Because they're taking up space in your mind. They have done things in your lifetime that you won't forget. And so even though you may be able to get them physically out of your life, they're still in your head. And if they're in your head, they're in your room. And that's the primary concept of this book. Now, I want you to think about what your room might look like. Is it full? Is it loud? Is it full of drama? Are there angry people? Is it really boring? What is your room like? Is it full of people that may be, I don't know, just a little bit weird? What is your room like? Well, whatever your room is like, you've created it. You've created that room. And so the question is, how are you going to manage that room? How are you going to manage your life going from here into the future? What you need, we argue, is a doorman. You need a doorman to guard that door. Now, you don't have to actually go out and hire a doorman. And by the way, you don't have to call it a doorman. You can call it a bouncer. You can call it a guard. You can call it whatever. You can call it a door person. We use the term doorman. Now, the doorman is a metaphorical individual that screens people from entering your room or your life. Now, here's an example of where this isn't about BNI, but it's kind of about BNI. In BNI, we actually have a real doorman. What is our doorman? The membership committee. The membership committee is the doorman of a chapter. It's the membership committee that says, hey, wait a minute, we're not so sure you're a good fit. Or, please, come on in. We think you're a great fit. And so this is where the membership committee of a chapter is so incredibly important for the success of any chapter. Now, what is that doorman going to base things on? Now, we're talking about you as an individual. You as an individual. You have to train your doorman on what to look for in letting people into your life or into your room. I argue that that's got to be based on your values. What are your personal values? And so you have to train your doorman on those values so that your doorman, this metaphorical, your conscious and subconscious mind, can screen people out from coming into your life that don't fit your values. Well, what are we talking about with values? Your inspiration, independence, freedom, balance, vision, family. These are all things that are related to your values. Now, of course, in any business, there are values. Most companies have core values. In BNI, you've seen them here tonight. The idea of giver's gain, lifelong learning, accountability, recognition. These are all values in the organization. And one of the things that I recommend in BNI is that you make sure that you're bringing in people who have values that are resonant with our values. And by the way, let's talk about resonance and dissonance. The values of the person that you're bringing into a chapter, the values of a person that you're bringing into your room, don't have to be the same values as you have, but they have to be resonant values with yours. If they're completely incongruent or dissonant, it's not going to be a good fit. For example, one of the values that I discovered by thinking about this process was that I wasn't crazy about drama. I like drama-free zones. And so I look for people that kind of have a drama-free zone. Now, a dissonance, let me try to explain it. A really good example of it, I'm not a musician, but I've seen this in operation. Imagine two pianos side by side. And on one piano, you hit the middle C key. And on the other piano, you hit the sustain pedal. On the piano that you hit, you hear the sound, but when you hit the sustain pedal on the other piano, it vibrates. You can hear sound come from that. That's resonance. When you hit the key of one, press the pedal on the other, you get this resonance that comes where one piano actually affects the other piano. And a great example of dissonance is when somebody takes their fingernails and scratches a chalkboard and everybody kind of shivers. That's dissonance. And so what we're talking about are values that are either resonant or dissonant with you. And there are many people that I've met over the years where their values weren't the same, but it was okay. It was still resonant. And what you're looking for are people who have resonant values with you individually and, of course, within BNI. Your life does not have to be a revolving door. When we're young, it's a revolving door. We have no control over who comes into our life or who doesn't come into our life. But as we get older, we actually have the opportunity to control who comes in, who doesn't come in. So what you have to determine is what's important to you. What are the things that are important to you? The truth is that what controls your mind controls your time. What consumes your time, what takes up your time, controls your mind. And so the things that you are doing are very effective. They impact your values and your life. And so you're going to hear me say over and over again that the values that you have are extremely important, and you have to understand them. See, the problem is that when I talk to some people and I say, tell me your top 7 values, it's like watching deer in the headlights. They have no idea what their values are. And if you don't know what your values are, you don't know what to screen for in your personal life. My wife and I, we actually even have couples values. The time that we spend with other couples, the other couple has to love and respect each other. If as a rule that couple doesn't behave in a loving way or a respectful way with one another, that's a couple we don't want to spend time with. That's an example of the kind of values that we are looking for. And so what you want to do is sit down and actually figure out some of the values that you have. In the book, we have sections where you can go through and select different kinds of phrases and words that will help you get good with your values. We also have a URL that you can go to, a website that you can go to for free where you can download some worksheets so that you can figure out your values. Because if you don't get your values, everything else that I'm going to talk about tonight won't make sense. And so you have to think about the things that are important to you. Now, a great way to start in thinking about the things that are important to you is to think about your deal breakers. Deal breakers are the things in your life that are absolutely unacceptable behaviors. Okay? I already named one of mine. Mine is drama. I hate drama. And you've seen this, right? We all have a little bit of drama. I have a little bit. Everybody has a little bit of drama. But I'm talking about the people who are dripping in drama. Everything is a problem. Every day is dramatic. I have a problem with that. I don't like hanging around people like that. And when I started working on this book, I realized I had a lot of people with drama in my life. And I had a second realization. It was all my fault. They were there because I let them in. I didn't like it, but I let them in. I let them in because I didn't understand how important it was to have a life of resonance and not a life of dissonance. And so I let people into my life who were good at what they did, and so I accepted them for that, but I didn't accept them for the values that they had and the things that were important to them. And so deal breakers are really important to have. You need to know that. Now, the thing is, it's easy to figure out your deal breakers. When I ask people their deal breakers, they can come up with them immediately, but when I ask them for their values, they struggle. So this is why it's so important for you to spend some time thinking about the values that you have. I suggest that today, from here on out, you draw a line in the sand and you say, these are the kinds of people that I want around me. These are the kinds of people that I want in my chapter of BNI. These are the kinds of people that I want in my own personal life. This is the kind of life that I want to live, and I'm not going to let other people control me and control my life. Because the quality of your life is dependent on the people in your life. But in order to do that, you have to draw a line in the sand. And this is why sometimes you don't want to accept certain people into a BNI chapter. You don't want to accept people into your life. These are people that need to stay on the porch, but you're not going to let them into your room. Are the people in your life engines or are they anchors? An engine is an individual who drives you forward. They help you. They support you. They make you a better version of yourself. An anchor is someone that just brings you down. You can think about the people in your life now, and I bet if you made a list of all the people in your life, you could determine which ones of those are engines and which one of those are anchors. The problem is some of them are actually anchors with an engine attached. And they're taking you right down. They're the ones that are either taking you down or taking you in the opposite direction of where you want to go. And so it's so important that you recognize engines versus anchors. Now, you see, this is a book about self-development. It's a personal development book. But do you see how it fits BNI? I have found members in BNI who are engines and members who are anchors. I remember meeting a woman once at a BNI chapter, and she said, "We have a guy in our chapter where the best thing he ever does for us is call in sick. When he calls in sick, we have a great meeting. When he's not there, it's fantastic." She said, this is what she called him. She said, "He is a fun sucker. He sucks the fun right out of a room." That's an anchor. That's bringing down the chapter. Have you ever worked someplace and somebody gets let go on the job or they quit and there's this giant sigh of relief from everyone in the office? It's like, oh, thank goodness that person's gone. What a difference it makes. The quality of your room determines the quality of your life. Now, if you haven't figured this out yet, let me describe what the room is, because people get confused when I talk about your room. I got an email from somebody today, and they launched into this big explanation of what they thought the room was, and how really there's many rooms, and you can go from one to another, and you can do this and that, and had all this description. But here it is. The room is this simple. The room begins here and ends here. This is your room. It's your mind. It's all the people that you've had in your life. It's those people that have helped you and those people that have hurt you. They're all in your mind. We interviewed a neuroscientist and psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Amen, for the book. And one of the things that he said in there is that the people that you develop relationships with throughout your life, their fingerprints are all over your mind. Their fingerprints are all over your brain. The people who have helped you are there. The people who have hurt you are there. And so the room is your mind. And so it's very important that you train your doorman on your values so that you can screen out those people who are anchors and welcome those people into your life that are engines. Now, in order to do that effectively, you have to learn how to say no. Learning how to say no is actually pretty important. Now, I run a networking organization. I don't like saying no. It's not fun to say no. I try whenever possible to say yes, but there are times in life where you have to say no. One of the things that Steve Jobs used to say was that he was more proud of the things that Apple said no to than the things they said yes to. Because many of the things that Apple said no to would have hurt the company, would have distracted the company. It would have taken the company in a wrong direction. And so he was as proud or more proud of the things that they said no to than the things that they said yes to. And so it's very important that you learn how to say no. I'm going to give you some techniques here. Learn how to say no without sounding like a jerk or worse. All right, would you like a few techniques? Here's a few. This is my favorite technique in learning how to say no. What scares me, though, about sharing this is that there are probably a few people in the audience that I've used this with. So I apologize in advance. But here's my favorite technique. If I said yes to that, I'm afraid I'd let you down. That's a very soft way of saying, yeah, I'm not going to do that. If I said yes to that, I'm afraid I'd let you down. Now, you have to mean it. This is something you use with somebody who you like, you respect, and you don't want to let down. But sometimes I've learned that throughout my life I've said yes to things and I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have done it because it wasn't part of my mission or my vision, or I didn't have time, or I didn't have the bandwidth, or whatever the reasons were. I said yes, and then I let people down. And so a great way that I use to say no is, if I said yes to that, I'm afraid I'd let you down. Now, here's the beauty of being involved in BNI. Many times what I'll do is I'll refer them, this is the second technique, refer them to someone else. I don't want to let you down, but I know somebody who I think is interested in that, understands that, and can help you with that. Second technique is to refer them to someone else. Now, I'm not saying refer them to someone else to be a problem for someone else. I'm suggesting you refer them to someone else who might really be able to help them and who would really be interested in helping them. That's happened to me many times throughout my life, where somebody referred me and it was something they couldn't do well, but I was able to do well, and it ended up really working extremely well for me because it was referred to me. I know I have referred things to people that have worked out extremely well for them, but I wasn't able to do it. So if I said yes, I'm afraid I'd let you down. Refer them to someone else. Here's a third one. I don't do that. Thanks for thinking of me. I don't do that. Here's an example. Sugar, processed sugar. I don't eat it. I have no problem saying, I don't eat it. I don't do that. And I love it because people always say, oh, no, this is okay. This is good. Just one bite. Just try one bite. And I said, oh, just one? Yeah, just one. Great, you have it. I don't eat processed sugar. Thank you very much. I don't do that. It's okay to say no. Sometimes no is a one-word sentence. I try not to use it as a one-word sentence. I usually throw in no thank you. But no is okay, as long as you do it respectfully. And the truth is, you cannot control your room unless you practice discernment. I had somebody who said to me, I think the room concept is so mean. Not letting people into your room. That's not mean. It's discernment. There are certain people you let in, certain people you don't. This particular woman said, I have no problem letting anyone into my room. I said, great. I know someone who just got out of jail for burglary. He's looking for a place to stay tonight. Can he stay with you? Well, of course not. That's discernment. That's an extreme example, but we need to use discernment in order to achieve success in business. And so all I'm suggesting is that you use discernment effectively. Another great concept in saying no is offer another option. I'm not able to do that, but I could do this. For example we use in the book is, let's say someone comes to you, let's say you're a caterer, and someone comes to you and asks that person, or asks you, to cater some charitable event. And you can't afford it. And so what you do instead is say, I can't cater that event. However, can I provide a free gift certificate that you can give away at the event? Generally, people go, yeah, that'd be fantastic. And so one of the things you can do is offer something else. Here's an example of what I do often. I am all the time asked to go visit a particular chapter or come to a particular country. The interesting thing is that if I caught a chapter meeting of BNI every day of the week for the rest of my life, it would take 35 years to get to every chapter. Assuming we have no new chapters, but according to Mac, we're going to have a whole lot. So I just can't do it. But I hate saying no, so what I have a tendency to do is say, I can't do that, but can I do a video for your chapter? And people say yes. And so offer something else. Learn how to say no, but say no in a way that's professional and polite. It's a very powerful technique in controlling your room. If you want to have a great life, you have to get control of your room and your chapter. All right, let's talk about something else. there are people in your life that are already there. They may be a family member. They may be somebody that you let into your life before you understood the room concept. If you had to do it over again, maybe you wouldn't, but they're there. They're there. Family members in particular, they're there. You can't get them out. And so there's nothing wrong with saying to people, you may be in my room, but the baggage has to stay out. You don't necessarily do it like that. But let me give you two examples, very similar examples. One was from one of my co-authors, Rick Sapio, and the other is from my second co-author, Stuart Emery. And they were both dealing with a mother or a mother-in-law. So Rick used to call his mother every Sunday. Every Sunday he'd call her at the same time. And he said, my mother was caustic. She was toxic. She had some serious emotional issues when she was younger, as we were growing up. I know that. I recognize that. But she's my mother. I love her. I call her every week. And he would always hang up really upset because she would just complain, and she would talk about his brothers and sisters, and it was always a difficult conversation until he understood the room concept and the fact that baggage has to stay out. And one day he said to his mother, Mom, I love you. I love you very much. I'm going to call you every week, same time. But when you start going down that road of being toxic or difficult, or you start talking about my brothers and sisters, I'm going to say to you, Mom, I love you very much. I look forward to talking to you next week. Goodbye. And I'm going to hang up. He said he did that for 3 weeks in a row. And after 3 weeks, his mother never did it again. And he said, my mother didn't live much longer. She lived for about another 1.5 years, 2 years. But he said it was the best 2 years of our relationship. Because we would just talk. And she wouldn't go off about other people. She would talk about problems or challenges, but it wasn't the same way. And he said the end of her life was much different relationship with me because she was in my room, but the baggage had to stay out. Now, my other co-author, you can get a sense for the style of one individual versus the other individual. The other gentleman, Stuart Emery, his mother-in-law, now you got to understand, Beth, what is Stuart? 80 years old? 80? Yeah, he's in his mid-80s. Okay? His mother-in-law is 98. His mother-in-law is 98. Well, he was talking to his mother-in-law. He talks to her some regularity, and he said every time he talks to her, she is telling him what he should or should not be doing. He calls it shoulda upon him. She's always shoulda upon him. You know, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't eat that, Stuart. He's 85. You shouldn't be eating that, Stuart. And so he told her one day, Doris, you can't tell me what I should or shouldn't be doing anymore, okay? I'm a grown man. Can't do it. So he's talking to Doris one day on the phone, and she went down that route about what he should be drinking or shouldn't be drinking, and he just hung up. He just hung up. Doris called him back. Doris said, Stuart, did you hang up on me? He said, Doris, I would never hang up on you. My doorman did. It was my doorman. I wouldn't do that. She understood the doorman concept. Didn't go over well, but she didn't do it anymore. Different styles, different approaches. I prefer Rick's approach to dealing with people that have a lot of baggage. Look, you're going to have people in your life. They're going to be there. But their baggage doesn't have to be. And that's part of that whole process of drawing a line in the sand where you say, this behavior is not acceptable anymore. This certainly applies in networks. It absolutely applies in any networking organization. It certainly applies in BNI. I remember the first time I applied this concept in a BNI chapter. It was a BNI member who was well-respected, incredibly well-respected. Everyone looked up at him. And it was in the second chapter of BNI. The second chapter. So it was, 9,147 chapters ago. Second chapter. He was always late. most respected member in the city, most respected member in the chapter, and he was always late. Now, he wasn't at first, but as time went on, he would become more and more late. So I sat down with him one day, and I said to him, now, what tends to happen in a BNI chapter is people say, you can't keep coming late. If you come late, we're going to open your classification to someone else. And so you treat them like that, sort of like the steward approach. I'd recommend you be a little softer. What I did was I sat down with him and I said, look, do you know how well respected you are in this community? And he was surprised because I know he thought I was going to lead with, you're showing up late all the time, you got to come to the meetings on time. But I didn't. I said, do you know how well respected you are in this community? He said, what? I said, you're highly respected. You're a very successful business professional. The other members really, really look up to you. We are very lucky to have you as a member of the chapter. And we're very happy to give you referrals in this chapter. And he said, wow, thank you. I said, as a matter of fact, because people look up to you, you are a role model in this chapter. He said, wow, thank you very much. I said, and as a role model, when you come late, it impacts everybody else because they think they can come late. And then what you have is an entire chapter showing up to the meeting late. And he said, yeah, I see that. I'm seeing more and more people coming in about the same time I do. And I said, how are we going to fix that? He said, I think I need to come on time. I said, I think you're right. You see, look, we have rules in BNI. There are rules. The thing is how you apply the rules that count. It's, I think, important to apply the rules of BNI more like Mandela than Attila. And what we tend to do is apply rules like Attila. We tell them what they're doing wrong and why they're doing it wrong and what we're going to do if they keep doing it wrong. When instead, I believe that you draw a line in the sand, this is unacceptable behavior, and you explain why it's unacceptable behavior, and you tell them why they're important to the chapter. You treat people with respect, but you don't back down, and you do it tactfully. That's all part of having someone in your room, but their baggage has to stay out. Now I'm going to give you another technique. This is not in the book. I added this for this presentation for BNI specifically. It's called addition by subtraction. You really want to create an amazing room? Sometimes, in order to create an amazing room, an amazing BNI chapter, you grow by cutting back. Sometimes, if you really want to have a successful chapter, you actually need to cut it back in order to grow. What made me think of this was one day, Elizabeth and I, we had a house in Claremont, and there were about 50 rose bushes all around the house. And I came home one day, and they're cutting the rose bushes way, way back. And I went into the house, and I said, Elizabeth, why are you having the rose bushes cut so far back? And she said, oh, well, they don't bloom unless they're cut back. And so you have to cut them back in order to really get them to bloom. And I started thinking about that in terms of a BNI chapter. And I thought, my goodness, that is so true, because I've always said, sometimes in order for this chapter to grow, you got to take a person or two who's an anchor. I wasn't thinking of it in those terms then, but they're basically an anchor. And if you cut loose that anchor, the chapter grows. And so I tried this out at that very month. I went to a chapter that only had about 19 members. And I said to them, you want to get to be over 30? They said, yes. I said, cut 3 or 4 members. They said, are you kidding? No. Cut 3 or 4 members. Take your best members, hold on to them, and cut loose the rest of the members. And that will take you to over 30 members within months. And they did it, and it happened. Sometimes, in order to create the room that you want, you have to subtract. And that's definitely true in BNI. If you want to grow a chapter, sometimes you have to cut the chapter back. Now, let's go back to dealing with your life personally, and you can certainly use this technique in networks, but in your life personally, how do you deal with some of the people that are already in your room that you would not have let in your room had you understood this concept? That was one of the questions that people asked all the time as we were discussing the room concept with people. What do you do with the people that you shouldn't have ever let in the room to begin with? And I'm going to give you 2 techniques to address people that you would not have let in your room, but they're there. What do you do? The first is benign neglect. Benign neglect is something that happens when people just don't stay in touch with one another. There are people that I went to school with, I went to high school with, people that I went to the university with, that I liked. They were really good people. I enjoyed them. But over time, I lost touch with them. And as I lost touch with them through benign neglect, the relationship fizzled away. Now, that happens with people you like. Imagine if you have a plan to do it with the people you don't like, with the people that you didn't want or you understand now you shouldn't have let into your room. Benign neglect is a very, very effective technique in gradually removing yourself from the relationship. One of the techniques you can use along with benign neglect is the concept of homeopathic doses. A homeopathic dose is the minimum dose necessary to treat some ailment. Here's an example of how that would play out in a relationship. Let's say you're flying to a nearby town. You're flying to Bangalore. And there's someone there that you've had a relationship with in the past, a professional relationship, a personal relationship, and you know that if they find out that you're in Bangalore, they're there, you know that if they find out, they're going to be upset with you because you did not tell them that you were coming to Bangalore. And now with Facebook, for crying out loud, you can't go anywhere without people not knowing you're in the town. And so rather than call them up a month in advance and set something up, what you do is you call them up the day before. Or better yet, email them the day before and say to them, hey, I happen to be in Bangalore tomorrow, and I'm free between 1 and 1:30. Would you like to get together for some tea? And so you minimize the contact necessary with that individual. It's a really effective technique to gradually create this benign neglect. Now, sometimes, and I've seen this happen, and Elizabeth shared with me a story once, a friend of hers, where she realized that this person just did not have the values that we have as a family. And so she gradually, through benign neglect and homeopathic doses, started to reduce the amount of contact with the individual. Sometimes people won't say anything, but sometimes they will say something like, hey, I've noticed that we're not connecting as often. What's going on? And that's an opportunity where I think you can have a conversation. If you say to somebody, I'm no longer in alignment with your values, and I want to spend less time with you, that tends to be confrontational. People don't react well to that. But if you start to withdraw from them and they come to you and say, hey, how come we're not spending more time together? That gives you then an opportunity to say, all right, I'd be happy to have this conversation. Do you really want to have this? Do you want to hear what I have to say? And they will almost always say yes, and then you tell them why. In the particular case that I'm thinking of, that Elizabeth shared with me, is that there was somebody that just tended to use drugs. And it was just not a value that we were comfortable with. And so she started to withdraw from that relationship. And when the person asked, she was able to have a conversation with her as to how this made us uncomfortable. And so these are techniques that you can use for people that you've already allowed into your room, but you want to gradually remove yourself from that relationship. All right, so the last part of the book, and by the way, I didn't mention this, but we're going to have some time to do Q&A. We've got about 20 or 30 minutes where we'll be able to do Q&A, and I think there's going to be some microphones that'll come on out into the audience, and I'm going to let the director team pick who they would like to answer a question or ask a question. Ask me a question. I'll try and take as many questions as I can in about 20 or 30 minutes, and that'll be in a few minutes. But let's talk a little bit about something that I think is really important, and that is the secret to balance. How many of you would like to know the secret to having a life of balance? Yeah? You'd like to know it? Let me hear it. All right, here it is. You ready? Forget about balance, you'll never have it. You didn't mean that applause. I know you didn't. As a matter of fact, I generally hear, and I think I heard someone over here kind of moan, oh, I thought I was going to get a good answer here. Well, I think you're going to get a good answer, but it may not be what you expect. I think balance is impossible. I think balance is completely impossible. And I think holding ourselves accountable to be in a life of balance is unrealistic, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Especially if you're in business, because you're trying to balance everything. You're trying to balance your personal life with your professional life. You're trying to balance that with health, your spirituality. We look at it like scales, and our entire life must be in this perfect balance. And the truth is, I believe that's impossible. Life is more like a juggling act, I think, than it is about balance. And so, it's not all bad news. I have good news. While I don't think you can have a life of balance, I do believe you can have a life of harmony. If you create a room of harmony. And this is more than semantics. It's more than semantics. It really is. Just look here at the graphic for harmony. The yin and the yang. If you were to separate them, it would be out of balance. But together it comes into balance. So harmony is about controlling your room in a way that isn't fully in balance, but it is in harmony. I don't think balance is possible for a business person. I do believe harmony is possible. So how do you create a life of harmony? I'm going to give you some techniques that I think if you employ into your life, you will find that your life is so much better. We talk about this in the book at length. I'm going to give you several techniques. Here's the first one. 3 simple words. Be here now. Be here now. Wherever you are, be present. Don't be at work thinking about the fact that you didn't spend time with your family last night. Don't be at home thinking about that project that has to be done at work. Wherever you are, be there. Be present. Now, nobody's perfect at this. I'm certainly not. But I worked hard at being present wherever I was. I travel a lot. I travel a whole lot. And so when my wife was at home watching the kids as I was traveling, that was a struggle for me to be out and traveling while she was raising the kids. And yes, I mean, we both raised the kids, but often I was gone for periods of time, days at a time. Every other week I was on the road. And I remember when my son was 17 years old, he's 26 now. He was 17 years old, and we were sitting in big chairs with this big screen TV in front of us, and we're playing a game of Halo. And for the record, he was kicking my butt in this game of Halo. And we're playing this game together, and we were leveling up to the next level. And I said to him, hey, buddy, was I around enough for you when you were growing up? And he looked at me like I was completely crazy. He said, what? I said, was I around a lot? He said, you're around all the time. I'm like, well, okay, but you remember I travel, right? Did you notice that I'm gone from time to time? He's like, yeah, I noticed you're gone. He said, I don't know. What can I say? It's like when you're here, you're like here. So can we get back to the game now? I'm like, yes, we can get back to the game now. Just looking for, some feedback. Be present. Be fully present. And again, nobody's perfect at this. And you might have to get creative in order to be fully present. You might have to be really creative with your time management. The first major book I wrote, most people don't know the first book. The first major book was World's Best Known Marketing Secret, but I actually wrote a book before that. You don't know about it because I think it sold like 20 copies or so. It didn't do very well. So the first major book I wrote, I wrote almost the entire book from about 11 p.m. till 4 or 5 a.m. about once a week. So in the evening, my wife and I'd put the kids to bed. I'd put the wife to bed. I would then go to my office in the house and I'd start writing once a week. For at least a year, I would write almost all night. When my first major book came out, and my eldest daughter saw the book, she said to me, "You wrote a book? When did you write a book?" She had no idea. She had no idea that I was working at night once a week. They were in bed, they were sleeping, I was writing a book, so that I could be fully present as much as possible for them. These are the ways that you can be here now. So if you want, here's the thing, let's get BNI specific. BNI specific. You're at a BNI meeting. Put away your mobile device. Yeah, I think you should. The next time you pull out, I just saw somebody doing it with a mobile device. I saw it. The next time you pull out your mobile device at a BNI meeting, I'm going to implant this. If I had a little watch or something, I would hypnotize all of you right now. Okay? I'm hypnotizing you. Pretend that I have this watch or something dangling back and forth. The next time you are at a BNI meeting and you pull out your mobile device, I want you to say to yourself, "Be here now." And I want you to put that mobile device away and be present. You're in a room with dozens and dozens of referral partners. These are people that are going to help you be successful in business and in life. Be here now. Even at a BNI meeting, especially at a BNI meeting. All right, here's another technique. And this one is, at first glance, confusing. Because what I'm going to suggest to you is, here we go. What I'm going to suggest to you is learn how to let go and how to hold on. Both. Now, why both? It's very important that you let go of those things that are not congruent with your values, with your mission in business. The things that aren't important to you in life, let them go. That's why we had the section on how to say no. Because I have found that there are things in life that just really aren't that important. They're not where I want to head in life. They're not supportive of my family. And so some things you got to let go. Now, you don't know what to let go unless you get good with your values. It keeps coming back to values. If you hear this presentation and you don't go home and figure out your values, you've lost all the benefits of this presentation. Because knowing your values are critical to being able to know what to let go on and what to hold on to for dear life. The things that are really, really important to you. And this is where understanding your values is critical. Because without this, you don't know what to hold on to. You're guessing. It's at the moment. Or somebody's pressuring you, and so you hold on to it. You do what they want instead of doing what you need to be doing, what you want to be doing, following your values. Learn to hold on and to let go. Next is create margins. I got this expression from Elizabeth. Create margins in your life. Just like there are margins in a book. You have to create margins in your life. Sometimes we live such a crazy, busy life, we don't have blank space. We don't have time to just relax. I take vacations. I take time off. If you were to ask Elizabeth, never trust a man who says, "I'm not a workaholic." Ask his wife. You can ask Elizabeth. She'll tell you I work really, really hard, and I take time off. As a matter of fact, from the day we were married on, I take one day a week, I call it my mental health day. I don't do anything. I'll hang around the house, I'll swim in the pool, I'll watch movies, I'll watch TV shows, I'll hang with the family. That's my mental health day. I don't work on that day. And so it's very important to have margins. And they don't have to be a whole day, but they can be. It doesn't have to be vacation, but it should be. You should be taking vacation. I met a person who's a good friend of ours. He said, I haven't had a vacation in 7 years. I felt like telling him, you're an idiot. Seriously? You haven't had a vacation in 7 years? That's not the kind of life I want to live. I think it's important to have margins in your life. Elizabeth and I, as often as possible, almost every night, we have what we call wine o'clock. Wine o'clock. We get a really good Cabernet, and we sit out on the balcony, overlooking our pool, overlooking the field behind our house. Or we have a tower, like an Italian villa with a tower. And we go on up into the tower, and we're up in the tower where we can see the deer, and we have wild turkey on our land. And so we can just sit there and watch the animals and talk. Wine o'clock as often as possible every day. It's a margin. It's a small margin. It's not big, but it's a time to connect, and it's a time to relax. And so creating a life of harmony really requires that you be here now, that you create margins, that you know what to let go of, what to hold on to, and you can only do these things by really, truly understanding your values. 2 more things. Mentors. You want to live a life of harmony? You really need people who can help you get there, that it can help you achieve success. Now, when I was a young man, I could only really have mentors for the people that I knew or the books that I read. Virtual mentors are great. Nothing wrong with starting with a virtual mentor. For me, it was books. But today, my goodness, today, there's so much content that is available to you. You've got books, you've got audios, you've got podcasts, you have YouTube videos. There's just so much material. And what you want to do is understand your values, know what you want to accomplish, and then look for mentors who will help you get there. And if you don't have a real-life mentor, or you don't have enough real-life mentors, virtual mentors are a great place to start. When I started BNI, I remember I was on a radio interview probably about 10 years ago. And we were talking about mentors and virtual mentors. And I said, on this radio interview, I said, well, you know, one of my virtual mentors, I never met him, was Michael Gerber. I read his book, The E-Myth. Absolutely, I built my company, BNI, having read The E-Myth, where he talked about working on your business, not in your business. And he talked about strategies like creating an organization chart when you only have one employee. Create a big organization chart so you can create a vision of where you want to go. And so I talked about all this on the radio interview. Went home. Later that week, guess who called me? Michael Gerber. He said, hey, heard the radio interview. Thank you so much for recommending my book. He said, I'd love to get together with you. Love to meet. I said, well, Michael, I've got a margin this week. I'm with my family and with a couple of business associates up at my lake house. I'd love to meet with you. Would you like to come to the lake house? And he said yes. And so Gerber spent a week, well, spent about 3 or 4 days with us that week. And I had a chance to meet one of my first virtual mentors who has now become a really, really good friend. I tell you that story because sometimes the people who you looked up to can become peers. You can actually work with them. And Michael and I have done videos together and other things together. And so getting mentors helps you achieve the success that you want in life which can help you create the harmony that you're looking for in life. It's so important. Being a mentor is extremely important. It's one of the reasons why I wrote that book, The Networking Mentor. Because it's not just about being mentored, it's also about being a good mentor for other people. Really, really important. You know, I found, here's an example of some mentoring that I did years ago when my son was about 10 years old. I volunteered to be the coach of his chess club. I was the coach of his chess club. I was pretty good at chess, but I never really studied it. So I'm playing 10-year-olds in chess. I'm teaching 10-year-olds in chess. And I realized that you can't wing it if you're teaching somebody. You got to know what you're talking about. So I started reading books. I started learning how to describe moves that I intuitively knew, but I didn't know what to call them. And I learned what a fork was, and what a skewer was, and what a ladder was, and all these different moves in chess that I intuitively knew, but never really took the time to understand. But I had to understand them to coach someone else. My chess game improved dramatically when I played 10-year-olds because I mentored them. So I would argue with you that being a mentor is good for your business because you'll have to improve your game in order to teach somebody how to be better at their game. The last thing in creating a life of balance, I think, is a really important one. And that is that if you want to have a life of balance, if you want to have a life of success, it's very important that you learn to work in your flame and not in your wax. Work in your flame and not in your wax. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, work in the areas of your business that just you're excited about, that you want to do. Now, we can't all get there overnight. I certainly didn't. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. And I spent years doing many of the things that I had to do to get to the point where I could do mostly the things that I want to do. I think we talked about this with the directors yesterday. The first piece of wax I wanted to get rid of was accounting. Accounting. Thank goodness for people like Anna, who loves accounting. I hate accounting. Now, I can read a financial statement, but it's not my flame. It's not what I love to do. Thank goodness there are people like her that love to do it. I hired one of those people. 33 years ago, I hired one of those people. And true story, one day she came to me and she said, "Your books didn't quite balance. They were 5 cents off, 5 pennies off. It took me about 2 hours, but I found the 5 pennies. It balanced." Now, I told that to a business associate of mine, and he said, "Did you reprimand her for spending 2 hours to find 5 cents?" I said, "No, I congratulated her." I said, "Really well done. I'm proud of you." He said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "That's easy. What if it were $50? She wouldn't go home at night. She wouldn't be able to sleep. For me, $50, I'd go, close enough. It's close enough. It's balanced. But for her, $50, she'd never go home. So if she would work for 2 hours to balance it, then I know that she's going to make sure it's balanced if something bigger happens." And so that's her flame. It was my wax. You have to find the parts of your life and your business that are your flame. Thank you. And then immerse yourself in that flame. Immerse yourself in that area. And if you can do that, you have a life that's fun. You have a business that you love to do, you're excited about. And that's the way to create a life of harmony. All right. I'm a real believer in the law of attraction. I'm a real believer in the law of attraction. I think the only person that's a bigger believer in my household in the law of attraction has got to be Elizabeth. She's done some amazing things with the law of attraction. but both she and I would tell you that the word action is part of the word attraction. That you can attract stuff as much as you want, but if you don't take action, it's not going to happen. You have to take action. And so I've talked about a lot of things that I think are really important to help create a life of harmony, a life that you enjoy, a room that you're glad to have, to be part of. But in order to do these things, you have to take action. And the first bit of action that I urge you to do is to sit down and think about your values. Take a moment or two now. Write down one or two things that you think are part of your life values. It might be family. It might be honesty. It might be adventure. Who knows? But write a couple of things down. Spend some time over the next few days getting good with your values. And by the way, your values can be aspirational. Values that you aspire to achieve. However, you also have to be behaving that way. You have to be taking action that way. Imagine someone is behind you videotaping your day. Are you taking action that is aspirational to that value? If so, you're going in the right direction. If you're not doing the actions necessary to that value that you aspire to, you'll never achieve it. I know many people that talk about these values that they have, but then they never do anything to try to achieve those values. So think about the values you have, the values you aspire to, and understand that you are the person in charge of your room. You're the person in charge of your group. You're the individual who can design the room of your choice. But in order to do that, you have to start taking action. You're the curator of the room that you live in. What I suggest that you do is curate it. Think about people who are anchors, who are engines. Think about how to say no more appropriately. Think about how to create balance in your life. Think about how you're going to train that doorman. These are the kinds of things that are all involved in curating your room. All right, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Well, maybe not too quick. I'm going to tell you a story. And then we're going to open it up for some Q&A, and we got about at least 20 minutes for Q&A. Years ago, I was in Hawaii. This is a picture of Kaanapali Shores in Hawaii. That's where I was. And one day, I'm out in the ocean about chest deep in the water, walking. And I'm walking along, enjoying the warm water. And I feel this tingling across my chest. I can't see anything. So I take my arm and I go like this, and I hold it up, and there are these tentacles right across my wrist, going all the way down. And I shake the tentacles off, and I look out about 15 feet away. I see this. That is a Portuguese man-of-war jellyfish. So I see this jellyfish, and I wasn't sure, but I thought it was a jellyfish. Thought it was a Portuguese man-of-war. Wasn't certain at the time. So I ran ashore, or swam ashore, and there was a cabana boy there. And I said to him, "Hey, look, I think I just got hit." Showing my chest. "I think I just got hit by a Portuguese man-of-war." And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, that looks like a Portuguese man-of-war." I said, "What do I do?" He said, "Well, are you dizzy?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you have any shortness of breath?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you have any chest pains?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay, no big deal. All you have to do, go on in to the hotel, go through the lobby, turn left, there's a little market. Go on into the market and buy some Adolph's meat tenderizer and some vinegar. Powder up your chest, pour the vinegar on, rub it all in. He said, you'll be fine. I said, right. Thanks a lot, I appreciate it. I figured, what's this guy know? He's a kid. He's just a boy. He doesn't know. So I walked a little further, and there was a restaurant outside, and there was a waiter who was a bit older. And I went up to him, and I said, hey, excuse me, but I think I just got hit by a Portuguese man-of-war. And he looked at my chest, he said, yeah, looks like a Portuguese man-of-war. I said, well, what do I do? He said, all right, well, first, are you dizzy? I said, no. He said, do you have any shortness of breath? I said, no. He said, what about chest pains? Any chest pains? I said, no chest pains. He said, okay, it's no big deal. Just go on into the hotel, go through the lobby, at the front desk, turn left, there's a market. Go on into the market, buy some Adolph's meat tenderizer, some vinegar, powder up your chest, pour the vinegar on, rub it all in, you'll be fine. I walked away from him, I'm thinking, what did these guys do? Have a staff meeting and figure out, how can we goof on the tourists? Let's get cameras around and we'll watch as they're lathering up their chests, we'll have a blast. They can't possibly be it. So I walk into the lobby, and there's the manager. He's got a little gray hair. I'm thinking, okay, he's not going to goof on me. I'm going to ask him. So I walk up to the manager, and I say to the manager, hey, I think I just got hit by a Portuguese man-of-war. He looked at me and said, yeah, looks like a Portuguese man-of-war. So what do I do? He said, okay, first, do you have any dizziness? I said, no. He said, shortness of breath? I said, no. He said, do you have any chest pains? I said, no chest pains. He said, okay, it's not a big deal. Just go down the hall, go into the market, get some Adolph's meat tenderizer, some vinegar, powder yourself up, pour it on, rub it in, you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, I give. Let them have a camera, let them do what they're going to do, I'll do it. So I went into the market, and I found the vinegar, but I couldn't find any Adolph's. And while I'm looking, I'm getting just a little bit dizzy. And then I was having kind of a hard time breathing. And it happened like this fast. I started feeling pain in my chest. It was like somebody was pushing against my chest. And then it was like somebody was sitting on my chest. And I staggered out of the market, and I walked to the lobby, and I got to the lobby, right in the middle of the lobby. And there was the manager. And I said to him, I said, and fell flat on my back in the middle of the lobby. Now, while I'm laying there, I'm still conscious, just barely, but I'm still conscious. And while I'm laying there, people have their luggage. And they're walking around me to check in. I see this little girl standing right next to me, and she goes, look, Mommy, this man's on the floor. The mother says, well, that's what happens when you do drugs. Do not do that. I'm lying there, and I go, it's not drugs, it's jellyfish. She's like, let's leave, honey. This is a very strange man. I'm lying there. My chest is pounding, and the paramedics show up within minutes. Paramedics are there. They rush in. They have a box. I am certain they're going to open it up and have a defibrillator. And they're going to go clear and go boom. But no. They open it up and pull out a bottle of vinegar and Adolph's meat tenderizer. And yes, they had this little spray bottle, and they powdered up my chest with Adolph's, and they sprayed the vinegar on, and then there were these two men rubbing my chest in the middle of the lobby, where I'm lying there, no shirt, people walking around me. Within moments, it started to reverse. Within moments, within 2 minutes, I could breathe. I had no chest pains. Still stung like a Dickens. It really stung. But it reversed itself almost immediately. It turns out that the Adolph's has an enzyme that counteracts the poison of the jellyfish, and the vinegar is the catalyst that drives it into the skin. Now, why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because I had 3 people give me the answer. 3 people. They gave me the answer. But I didn't pay attention to them. Why? I didn't pay attention to them because I thought I knew better. How many times has someone said to you, the quality of your life is dependent on the people in your life? How many times have we said in BNI, the quality of your membership is critical? You want to have a great chapter, you need great members. People with aptitude and attitude. People who have the right kind of attitude and are good at what they do. That's what you need. You want to create a great room? You got to surround yourself with great people. Heck, the first time we heard it was probably from Mom, who told us, I don't want you hanging out with Johnny. He's not a good influence. Right? We've all heard this. But how many of us have done it? How many of us have taken control of our room and taken control of our life? That's what this book is all about. It's about taking control of your life and taking control of your room. And if you learn how to do that, you will live the life of your dreams. All right, I got a few closing comments, but before I do, I want to open it up for some questions. And I think we got about 20 minutes where I can answer whatever question you've got. The only dumb question is the unasked question. I think we have some microphones that are going around.
We have some microphones, and we have a list of people that have asked some.
All right, I'll take as many as I can over the time we have.
Right. So the first question is from Janat Basin of Queens. So can we have Janat Basin walk up to one of the microphones? Yes,
There
she
Janet.
is.
Go ahead.
My name is Janat Basin, and I'm from Queens. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank BNI for launching the women's only afternoon chapter. So all my members from the Queens chapter are here to show support and to show gratitude. Ladies.
Thank you. And your question is?
My question is, thank you for that insightful talk. However, I would like you to share some advice or some input or some takeaway that you would like to share with us for success in business.
Well, gee, let's see. We talked about the doorman. We talked about how to say no. We talked about, can you get more specific? Because I feel like this presentation had lots of specific advice.
Well, I thought about the question before your presentation.
All right. Well, hopefully I gave you some suggestions that would help you out. Let me give you a general suggestion on being successful in business. One of the things that I see business people do a lot that is a recipe for failure involves doing things over and over versus not doing them over and over. If you want to be successful in business, do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. Many of the businesses I've seen that fail because they consistently try to do 1,000 things 6 times. Now think about BNI. BNI is all, and by the way, it doesn't have to be 6, it could be 5, it could be 4, but it's doing a handful of things over and over and over again. It's that consistency, using ideas from mentors, people you trust, and applying them consistently over and over again. That's what BNI is all about. It's about meeting every single week. It's about following a process. It's about having one-to-ones. It's about doing good weekly presentations. These are all things about doing 6 things 1,000 times. If you do 6 things 1,000 times, you're going to be a much more successful business person. I hope that was a good addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Rohin Ramchandani of Odyssey. Rohin Ramchandani of Odyssey.
Hi, Dr. Misner. Welcome to Mumbai.
Thank you. Where are we
Well,
at?
I'm here, this side.
Yeah, here, this side.
No
Up
matter.
there, right?
No-
Yeah, back there. Okay,
It's
got it.
it's you who matters. Was lovely listening to you, especially the number of times you took Beth's name. Because I do the same. I'm Rohin, an 8-year-old member of BNI Mumbai West chapter, Odyssey. My company is called Grandeur, is into Italian kitchens and furniture since 23 years. I'm venturing into franchise business, and my question to you is, how do I, or for that matter, any BNI member, take advantage of the BNI network to effectively have franchisees or do business globally, across the globe?
So how do you find people that are doing business globally across the globe? That's the question?
Networking is definitely a part of it, but how, since the BNI network is now open to all over India, initially
Sure.
it was not like that, I guess.
So I can tell you how I did it.
Yep.
I asked for referrals. BNI grew into over 70 countries around the world, and 68 of those countries were through referrals. Only 2 countries for BNI.
Just go online.
Only 2 countries for BNI did not open through a direct referral. And so my advice to you is look for referrals. Talk to people about what you're looking for in business. You never know who people know. You never know who people know. And as you ask for referrals, you will find that people will be able to give them to you, but you have to also have a relationship with them. One of the problems with BNI Connect, and it's now global, and that's fantastic, but if you use BNI Connect as a digital cold calling system, it won't work for you. So what will work is building relationships with people. So here's what I'd recommend that you do. Give me one country that you would like to be in.
Dubai.
Dubai. So what I would recommend that you do is you start reaching out to chapter members, probably presidents in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, and say, I'm a franchise, I need to work with franchise organizations. I'm planning on visiting Dubai. I would love to visit your chapter. And then set up a time we can go to Dubai and visit 3, 4, 5 chapters. I don't know if any of them meet for lunch, but if they meet at lunch, you might be able to get 8 chapters in a week, 9 chapters in a week. You go to those meetings, introduce yourself, build a little bit of a relationship with these people. First online, then show up, meet them, talk to them, tell them what you're looking for, and you never know who those people know. It's about building a relationship, and it's about asking for referrals. And when you do those 2 things, you get business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you. The next question, and I request you to please restrict it to a question, is from Siddharth Shah of Evolve. Siddharth Shah, Evolve. Question only, please.
So my question on behalf of my chapter is, so BNI is based on giver's gain philosophy. And sometimes in BNI we feel that okay, we are giving, but we're not getting anything or we're not gaining anything. And this person is gaining from day one, he's not giving anything to the chapter. And we become skeptical about this particular giver's gain philosophy. And sometimes that's the story. So how would you actually advise a person who's going through that phase that this stuff really works and it's not?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm the least new age kind of guy you'll ever meet. And so to have me talking about giver's gain 30 years ago was a little unusual because I'm a very practical individual. But one of the things I've learned is that technique, that philosophy is incredibly powerful. There's an expression that we have in the U.S., I don't know if you have it here in India, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't throw out the philosophy because you have a bad member who's not giving. So let me give you something very tangible that you can do with that person. You're giving them referrals, they're not giving you referrals. Sit down with that individual. Figure out before you sit down with them how many referrals you gave to them, who you gave to them, when you gave them those referrals. Sit down with them and say, I want to do a one-to-one with you. You sit down and you say, the reason that we're doing the one-to-one is to talk about the referrals that I've given you. Not about the referrals you haven't given me. Don't go there yet. Talk to them about the referrals you've given them. So in the last couple of years, I think I've given you 5 referrals. Here is the first one. How did that work out? And let them talk. They may say, turn into business. It didn't turn into business. You may think you've given them great referrals. And I've seen this happen, by the way, where somebody thought they were giving great referrals and the person said, yeah, none of those referrals were really what I'm looking for. So now you gotta step back and recognize that maybe I'm the problem, not necessarily them. And so get information. How did this referral work out? How did this referral work out? How did this one work out? They told me they bought products or services from you. Correct? Did that work out well? Get information. Let's say the scenario you described is absolutely correct. You've been giving them referrals, it's turned into business, they haven't given you anything. At the end of that conversation, when you have reviewed all 5 of the referrals you've given them and how they've worked out, and several of them have worked out well, that's when you then say, I am really, really pleased that the referrals I've given you have turned out for you. That is fantastic. I would really appreciate if you could now reciprocate by being able to refer some business to me, and maybe we can have a conversation now about how you can do that. And that's the way you go about having a conversation with somebody who's not giving you business. Clear, open, honest, direct communication. Professional, polite, and direct. You don't have to hide it. And you don't have to get angry at them. Now, sometimes when you say, would you be able to help me? Then they're going to say, no, I can't help you. There's not much I can do for you. Then you know where you stand with this person. And I have never seen this conversation take place where it wasn't a great learning experience. You either learn that you're the problem, or you learn that they didn't know how to refer you, or you learn that maybe you're not teaching people how to refer you effectively. Any one of those scenarios now gives you information on what to do next. I hope that answers your question. One more.
Next question is from Prachi Bagevartak of Business Genies. Prachi.
Good morning, I'm Prachi Bagevartak from BNI Business Genies here. Sir, you have partly addressed my query as regards relationship referrals. I wish to hear out if you could share one top networking tip which helps build relationship referrals.
One top networking tip that helps build relationships. Well, that's a broad topic. Let me address what I think is the foundation of networking. What happens is people often talk about techniques, but they don't talk about mindset. And so the mindset, the top technique for me, the most important technique for me, is the concept of VCP. Visibility, credibility, profitability. And what tends to happen in most networking groups is that people try to jump over visibility, they try to jump over credibility, and they want to get right to profitability, yet there's no relationship that exists. And so what I would urge is that you probably have heard me talk about VCP and other people talk about VCP, but immerse yourself in that and recognize when you're trying to jump over the process. If you don't get VCP right, you're not going to have any success in networking. Now let me give you a specific technique. That was a mindset. Let me give you a technique in networking that I think is important. I call it the 24/7/30 follow-up technique. If you want to follow up, you're here at a big event, hundreds of people. You want to follow up with these people now. So if you want to follow up with them, remember this. It's called 24/7/30. Within 24 hours, drop the person a note, a handwritten note. Nobody does handwritten notes anymore. Send a handwritten note. If not a handwritten note, at least send an email saying, hey, it was really nice meeting you at the Mumbai Members Day event. I enjoyed talking to you about this, whatever topic you talked about, and I hope our paths cross again. And don't sell to them. Don't sell to them. Just reach out and make a connection within 24 hours. Within 7 days, connect with them on social media. Connect with them on social media. Follow them on social media. Engage with them on social media. Respond to some of the things they're posting. Now, here's the really important concept. You need to go where they are not where you are. So you need to figure out what kind of social media platform they like. When you meet them, one of the things you might want to ask is, what social media platform do you like most? LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp? Where are you connecting with people? And then go to where they are, not where you are. And here's why that's important. It doesn't matter what platform you like. If you want to build a relationship with them, you need to go where they are. I learned this from my children. And I'll tell you why. When my eldest daughter, she's 33 now, when she was 17, I would call her up on the telephone and she never answered. Ever. But if I texted her, she'd respond immediately. I remember saying to her once, honey, you know this device has an earpiece and a mouthpiece, and you can actually talk in this thing? She's like, oh yeah, Dad, I know. I said, well, why don't you use it? Well, she wanted to text. And so I realized that if I wanted to communicate with her when she was a teenager, the best way to communicate with her was through text. I hate texting. I am such a baby boomer. But if I wanted to stay connected with her, I would text, and I did. Then my second daughter, when she was 17, 18 years old, now this is she's 28 now, so it was about 10 years ago. I'd call her nothing. I would text her nothing. I went to my wife, and I said, honey, what? Dorian's not responding to me at all. I call her, I text her, she's not responding to me. Now this is 10 years ago, okay? Elizabeth said, oh, you have to WhatsApp her. I said, what's WhatsApp? I didn't know what WhatsApp was. So she helped me download WhatsApp. So I tested it once. I called her, no answer. I texted her, no answer. I messaged her on WhatsApp. She responded immediately. Okay? Then my son. Oh, my son. He didn't know the phone was an actual device to talk to. He didn't like texting. WhatsApp was so old school for him. And I was really struggling. How am I going to stay connected with my son? And then I realized he's a gamer. He loves games. And so he was on a platform called Steam, where you download these games and you can play these games. And there was an instant messaging feature in Steam. So I'm in my 50s. I download Steam onto my computer. I buy a game so that I can see him online, instant message him, and get a response. It didn't matter where I wanted to connect or how I wanted to connect with them. I would have just called them. Now, I'm pleased to say that they've all grown out of that, and most of them now respond to a phone call. But at that time, if I wanted to stay in touch with my children, I had to go where they were, not where I wanted to be. The same thing applies here. Go where they are on social media, not where you are. You know where I spend most of my time. I showed you before we started. It's on Facebook. Mumbai is going to beat Delhi now, right? Yeah, okay, good. So, 24/7. Oh, and 7. You're connected to them on social media. Don't sell to them. Okay? 24/7, 30. Within 30 days, reach out to them however you would like. A phone call, an instant message, a text, it doesn't matter. Reach out to them and say, hey, we met a month ago. It was great meeting you. I've been following some of the things you're posting on social media. I love some of the stuff you do. I'd love to get together with you for a coffee and learn more about what you do, and maybe you'll learn a little bit about what I do. Then you sit down with them in a one-to-one meeting, you find out what they do, you tell them what you do, and don't sell to them. Don't sell to them. Why? Because you're just now barely at visibility with them. You shouldn't be selling to them until you're at credibility. Until you know that there's a relationship and they're willing to either refer you or do business with you. And so that's where VCP comes and connects with the 24/7/30 technique in networking. You got 2 for the price of 1. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to end. So I have one last story that I'll share with you, and then we're done. Last story. There was a young police cadet many years ago who was sitting for his first year exams at the police college in London, where he read the following question on the exams. It said, "You are out on the beat one morning when you hear an explosion in a nearby street. You run to the scene where you find a car lying on its side. Both of the occupants are okay, but there is a strong smell of alcohol in the car, and you notice that the passenger is the wife of the divisional inspector. Just at that moment, a man comes running from a nearby house, screaming that his wife has gone into labor and he needs help to deliver the baby. As you turn to look down the street, you notice that there's a jogger approaching who you recognize to be a notorious criminal wanted for armed robbery. The question went on to say, in the light of the Criminal Act of 1990, please describe how you would deal with each and every one of these situations in order of priority. The young police cadet wrote one sentence in answer to his question. He said, "I would take off my uniform and mingle with the crowd." Sometimes we hear complex answers to what life leads to, and we just don't know where to start. We just want to take off our uniform and mingle with the craziness that's all around us. I've given you lots of ideas today. Process these ideas. Think about these ideas. Think about the life that you want to live. Think about the room that you want to create, because the truth is that the quality of your life depends on the people in your life. And when you design your room, you transform your life. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ivan Misner.
Thank you.
Dr. Misner, may I request you to please stay on stage for a moment, and may I request Mrs. Misner to join us as well. The team would like to do the honor of presenting you both with a small token of our affection and gratitude. Hemu sir,
Sorry.
Mac, Atul, if we could have you on stage.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Wow. Already? That's fast. These are, can you hold this one? These are photographs from the last several days. Very nice.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.